Hey. So we're living in a time of constant tearing down talking. One is better than the other. So I thought it's time to change up the tune. It's time to empower. It's time to uplift. So I decided, as little me, Petra Spillman, to show you who are the amazing women in my life. Be surprised. Hey, Juandalynn, welcome. I'm so excited we can finally do this.
Oh, thank you, Petra. Yeah, I'm glad that you invited me.
Anytime. You're such a force to reckon with. And for everybody should know you, but everyone who doesn't know you and doesn't know how I met you, here's the crazy story. So here I am in Stuttgart, Germany, and I'm flipping through the channels. And I'm realizing, wait a minute, who is this lady who speaks perfect German? And then I'm looking under the subtitle. It says, Dr. Martin Luther King's goddaughter. And I was like, what? What you said is not just who you are or who you were born into. It was who you were as a person, and what you said touched me so deeply. Because I think you and I have the same heartbeat when it comes to these things, what we're going to talk about. And I was just flashed, and I was so happy. So when TED Talks came up, because, I was a speaker coach at TEDxStuttgart, I had to suggest you. And I loved how we all pulled on one string, how everybody was there for the cause, for the common vision. It was really like the sandworm principle, what I was talking about? It's like nobody cared about one is better than the other. And
that's right.
It was beautiful.
It was a beautiful experience. And I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity. And I'm glad that you suggested and that you made it possible. Yeah.
But you spoke in German about a topic that is very, very close to your heart.
Yeah.
The topic of so-called racism.
Yes.
Which is a very, very rough thing when you think about it. How people will just tear you apart because of the way you were born.
Color of your skin, where you come from, your roots. Yeah.
Exactly. So that night when you spoke about it, it just like, I remember the room was just quiet. You spoke about Uncle Martin. You spoke about
my father.
And I just love to listen to you.
Oh, okay. So where do I start? Where do you want me to start from?
I think your early childhood memories.
Okay, that's living in Montgomery, Alabama at 1327 South Hall Street. That was the church parsonage. And at that time, my father was pastor of the First Baptist Church of Montgomery. Black First Baptist Church of Montgomery, Alabama. And in the at that time, there were actually 3 churches that were important, but First Baptist was the most important. Then I would say story is told Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and then Holt Street Baptist Church. And later on, Holt Street Baptist Church is where I and Yolanda King went to nursery school. Yeah. So I just remember, I just remember as a baby, the house being full of people, always full of people, white and black people. And of course, I was the center of attention. At that time, Yolanda wasn't born, and then she was born later on, but she wasn't around. I guess Uncle Retta didn't bring her to the meetings, but the photos and whatnot, I'm the only baby that's there. And of course, I'm being passed on to somebody's lap, and people are taking pictures with me. There are all these pictures of me as a baby, and of course, Uncle Retta and Uncle Martin and my mother and my father and very important people that helped to organize and be a part of the Montgomery bus boycott. And later on, I remember, I cannot remember the bombing of the house. My mother says to this date, I never awakened, which was a blessing. But everything around the crib was all broken, and she said I never awakened. I don't know. I do have recognition of us going to another place to live, and my mother being very sad, and not being able to touch things in the house. I was always told not to touch these things. And we went to stay with a member of the church who had an extra bedroom. And we lived in her house. The house was bombed on the 10th of January, 1957. And we moved back to our house that was renovated on, I think, a couple of weeks before, in August, in July, a couple of weeks before my mother gave birth to my sister. And then I remember not being alone. I remember taking pictures with my sister coming back from the hospital, and I remember that, and I remember when Uncle Martin, I remember the freedom riders. I remember them sleeping sometimes in my mother placed cots on the floor in the dining room and in the living room and in the guest room. I remember we always had activity in our house. I remember them. I also remember Uncle Martin had a tradition. He would sometimes bring my father home, or my father would sometimes bring him home. And when he would bring my father home, then he started the tradition of placing me on top of the refrigerator. We walked into this house on Hall Street. When you went through the door, it was in the living room, and to the right was the first guest room.
Okay.
And then you went straight on, and that was in the dining room. And then to the right of the dining room was my mother's and my parents' room, and where I slept in the baby bed. And then you went further, and there was the kitchen.
Okay.
And across from the kitchen was later on, which became Donzale and my and Ralph's bedroom. And then you went further, and to the left was the bathroom, and then to the right was my father's study.
Wow.
And then it went out into the backyard. Yeah. So I remember Uncle Martin used to, when he would come in the evening, and of course when he came, there was always eating and fellowship, and he placed me on top of the refrigerator. Back then, they have these retro Bosch refrigerators, yeah, and it looked just like that. And
how high was it? He was holding you?
No, he would place me on that refrigerator, and I was able to jump from the refrigerator into his arms.
Oh.
And that was a tradition that he always had. When he came, he placed me on top of the refrigerator. And for me, as a toddler and a young child, that refrigerator is high, you see. And just to jump into his arms, and it was, and then to hug, it was a great feeling. That was a tradition that he started. And then when Uncle Martin wouldn't be there and Daddy would come, then I'd want him to put me on the refrigerator too, so that I could jump. But
your dad was like, "What?"
No, it was a wonderful feeling. I got a feeling then for heights, because later on in growing up, when we would go to the Southeastern Fair, which was just every year, it's the only place that we could actually go to that had activities for Black people. We weren't allowed to go to Fun Town or to other amusement parks. They were not open to Black people, but the Southeastern Fair in Atlanta was. So back then, Daddy and Uncle Martin, Daddy gave $100 and Uncle Martin had $100, and we could ride every ride. We rode every ride there was in Southeastern Fair. We did everything what we could do for $100. So among the two of them, it was $200, and we did everything. We rode everything. So we were roller coaster fans. So I got my dealing, with heights, as a little child, to place you on the refrigerator and then to jump into his arms. It was a wonderful feeling. And then afterwards, riding roller coaster, and Yolanda would ride with her father, and I would ride with my father. And Uncle Red and my mother said they could hear us screaming down at the bottom. They knew when it was Juandalyn's voice, and they knew when it was Yoki's voice, but of course mine was much stronger. Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, you were like, mm-mm.
Yeah. And always he being at our home, and my mother cooking, or he making a telephone call and saying he wanted to have some fish, and would my mother cook fish, or put some steaks on the grill, or whatnot. Uncle Martin was in and out of our house. I say always, if there's 7 days in the week, 4 of them he was there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's trust.
Yeah.
When you just talked about trust.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just like when you allow somebody to, somebody's catching you after you fall. He understood the principle of trust.
That's right. That's what he was instilling in me as a baby.
Powerful.
After to fall into his arms, and he always caught me. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful feeling. Wonderful.
It's just like our Heavenly Father, He always, you can't fall that deep that he can't catch you. Remember, there's a scripture in the Bible where he talks, you cannot go as far as he says, well, you cannot fall so deep that he can't catch you. And I think he understood that principle of, I'm there and I'm going to catch you. I will not let you get hurt or anything. My arms, you are so safe. So, wow, I didn't know that. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And remember that one night we talked about how, racism is such a thing that's so skin deep.
Yeah.
And how Dr. Martin Luther King, recognized he was much deeper than that. And I remember how we talked that when my grandmother, I'm going to connect that stuff, what's going on right now. My grandmother grew up in the Second World War, and she had to prove that she wasn't Jewish. And we found out that our family is directly related to Martin Luther King, the guy who fought for the freedom from another lie. And it was kind of interesting how to see that these two freedom fighters, 2 different centuries. But I do believe when Dr. Martin Luther, his mama probably named him after.
No, his mother not. No, his real name.
Yes.
His real name was not Martin Luther. It was Michael. No.
Come on.
And my father's real name was not Ralph. My father's real name was David.
Okay.
And Uncle Martin's real name was Michael.
It wasn't Martin.
My brother always, no.
Are you serious?
Martin. No, I'm serious. Yeah. His real name was Michael. He was named Michael. And my father's real name was David. And my father got the Ralph because his older sister, there were 12 children, and my father was the 10th. And his the oldest sister had a professor in college that she really admired, and his name was Ralph. So she put the Ralph onto my father's name, which made it Ralph David. But my father's real name is David, And when he would go back home in the country, then down to the country, then they would always be saying David and David and David and David and David. But that came from my Aunt Doll. Her name was Aunt Doll. We called her Aunt Doll, and she put the Ralph on it. So, and because he really admired his sister and loved his sister, she was a great, very intellectual. She was a very smart woman.
Wow.
She died younger of cancer, but Aunt Doll put the Ralph on it. So that made a Ralph David. And Uncle Martin was named Michael. And his
How do you get
father,
Martin Luther?
he got it from his father, who changed it and said, okay, we'll put the Martin Luther after Martin Luther.
The Martin Luther right here in Germany, who, yeah.
That's right, Reformator.
Wow. So he got this from
his
yeah.
father, which
Wow.
he changed it, yeah. But he was born and named Michael.
Interesting. I didn't know this. This is awesome.
My brother always combines them and says, you know, Mishael, Michael in the Bible, and David, and they have he has a wonderful saying. I can't really remember exactly how it was, but they had a rendezvous together in destiny. They changed destiny, yeah, because both of them, the symbol of Michael in the Bible and then David in the Bible, yeah.
The war angel Michael, right? And then David, you know, the shepherd turned king, who fought against Goliath. It was like, I'm not having that. You think about, and this is exactly what I was trying to get, both men, two different countries, two different centuries, never met themselves, but they all met the truth. And the truth is for us to be free. Free from oppression of an idea, what the Catholic Church implanted, which was not in the Bible. Clearly, that's why he wrote the 5 Theses and said, this is not, you cannot buy your salvation. That comes through Jesus Christ alone. That's why he was nearly, you know, they tried to kill him a couple of times. And then, you know, talking about Dr. Martin Luther King now, who has the same thing of, this is not skin deep. This is much deeper. We need to be free, and we need to walk in our proper identity to fulfill our purpose. So that was just interesting when I thought about these two men fighting for the freedom of us all, because they stood up. And what can one person do, good and bad, you know, in that context? What can one lie do, and what can the truth do? It can either imprison us, what we're seeing right now, or it can set us free. And when I prepared for us to come together, I was really going deep, and I kept sending you stuff about, you know, the colonialism, and recognize, I was like, where is the root of racism? Where are these people getting the idea from that they're better than the other? And you know what? This thing started in the 14th century, colonialism. So you had all these European folks. I call it the faded black folks, because we all came from the same area of the equator. So I heard somebody say, I'm not white. I'm just a faded black woman, because through generations, you know, we lost all the melanin because we were moving up north, and that's what happens. So we burn the sun. But the bottom line is, we all come from the same ancestors. So that's the truth. We all related.
Yes.
We all related.
We all come out of Africa.
Yes,
equator. Want to believe it or want it, it's whether the white man wants to believe it or not. Yeah, we have in science anyway. If from white color cannot come. It always comes from the base, and that is because
exactly. So we all, and that's what I have to reiterate. I'm not a white person. Number one, white is not a color. Hey, if you go to a hardware store, I'm like papaya smoothie or something. I don't know, but. The thing is, we all coming from the same thing. So the idea of racism doesn't make sense, because we don't have races. We don't come from a race. We're not animals. And this is the bad thing here in Germany. I don't know if they do in the States the same way. They teach you that you come from a monkey. I go through the Stuttgart Zoo, and they said, your relatives. And I'm thinking, maybe yours, not mine. I think, because you know, the difference is, and we talked about this, the difference is, when you read the Bible, God created the animals, but he blew his breath into man. So we are made in his likeness.
In his likeness, in his image, yeah.
That means we have three parts. We have body, spirit, and soul. And the enemy, the monkey, only has a body and a soul. Have you ever seen a monkey build a church or worship? No, that's for us. We were made to worship. If you worship the VLB or your Mercedes-Benz, that's up to you. But was our function. We were made to worship. And that's why there's no racism. That's why I always laugh when they call my daughter, you're biracial. No, you're not. You are
Everything more
you.
important in
Done. End of
America is
story.
everything about race. Everything is about race,
Lie.
race, and that's sad. It's really, really sad. On every form, it's about race. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're all God's children. We're all the same. Yeah, we're
Yes.
all the same. Yeah.
And this idea came from the 14th century, and watch what they did back then. The French, the German.
I think
the
it goes
English,
even further back when you go
Portuguese.
back into it talks about also in the Bible about slaves, you know.
Yes.
Yeah,
True.
it
True.
just didn't start in the 14th century. I was having a discussion with my brother just this week. No, it must have been on Sunday when we were talking about, you know, statistics says that we came to America in the 1600. That's not true. We came in 1516 to the United States, to North America as slaves.
Yes. Yes.
15.
15.
15, 16.
15.
15, 16 as slaves.
And that was the whole idea. I call them as fated people, thinking that they're mature or
And
more sophisticated, better than now.
Educated.
Kidnapping people, indigenous people from all over the world, and putting them into zoos. You know, the Ringling Brothers in New York put people on display. Hagenbeck Zoo up in northern Germany. I didn't know that. I was like, you had people on display. You had the whole group on display. And that is like this idea of, because you're dark, you're less worth. That is coming. That's just a lie. That's what Martin Luther and Dr. Martin Luther King were going against. The same thing. That is not the truth. That is a pure lie.
There's a Hottentot. There's about the woman. In this discussion, I think it was on Sunday that I had with my brother, when we were talking about, you know, all the brutal things that have happened to Black people. How they did operations on Black women without anesthesia, how there was this the
Hottentotten.
That's right, and how they just buried her in 2012. They had cut her behind and her clitoris, and they held all these things in formaldehyde, until, because she was supposed to be so different. I mean, let's face it.
No, that's just wrong. Okay. Yeah. You know what the worst part about the Hottentotten is? My grandmother, you know, when, you know, we grew up, she would always look at me, she's like, you look like your room looks like at the Hottentotten. That means it's like a hot mess. And me going deeper into the history, going like, wait a minute, the Hottentotten was actually, you know, kings and queens from Africa. They were kidnapped by the French.
Of course. And they were placed in zoos.
Yes.
To be watched. The woman was naked. The woman was naked. Her name, they gave her now her name. Her name was Sarah Bartman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she belonged to a tribe, the Hottentot. Hottentot. Yeah. And they just buried her. She was born on they say the 29th of December in 1815. And they just buried her. Can you imagine? They just buried her in 2000, I think 2012. Yeah. Wow. She died in 18. She died. She died in 1815. They say she was born around 1789. 1789. So she was a young woman, and she had a very her behind and her thigh for a white person, perhaps that was something very special. But she came from a a special tribe.
Yes.
And but she was not the only one. She was one of two. I read up on it, and she was now recently buried. Can you imagine a person's body being conserved in formaldehyde until 2000? I think it's 2012. Isn't that crazy?
That
She was like a freak.
Yeah. There's a amazing documentary on that. It was in German, in Arte. I think I sent it to you, and it just talked deeply about what they did with folks from everywhere, from Australia, Africa, Native Americans. It was always the same thing of, we are better than thou, and we're going to put you in the zoo. And I have a feeling nowadays we have the same spirit, because the Bible says we're going to wrestle against flame and blood. We have the same spirit. You know what happened to me when I was in Spain with my best friend, who happened to be African American. We walking down the street, right, and all of a sudden Karen grabs my arm, and I have never seen that. What that woman is, powerful Black woman, right? She's like, nothing scares me. We walking down the street. Karen grabs my arm. I can still feel it. And she's like, she's frozen, and she's looking ahead, and she's like, what's the KKK doing here? I say, well, who's the KKK? See, I grew up in Germany, so I'm learning about all these things. I was like, well, who's the KKK? So you saw the Easter processions of the Catholic Church in the nice little hoodies that we know from the States now. And I think most people don't know that's where they might have originated from, with the holy thing saying that we're depend on the Bible, and everybody in the Bible was white, which is complete nonsense.
It's crazy. It's written in the Bible, first of all, that the Jesus skin was the color of
olives.
Wurzel, of roots. And if you go to that part of the country, then there's no white people there.
Exactly.
There are no white people there. And this fictitious picture of Jesus with blue eyes or skin white, it's just, it's all ridiculous, because the white man sees Jesus Christ as white. He sees him as his image. He has to make him white because he's white. Exactly. And everything else is wrong. Anything that's dark is bad.
Exactly. But do you know what I realized? When you have that mindset that I see all over, you surround yourself on both sides, not just the white folks, not just the Black folks, anybody who has that mindset that I'm better or I'm getting back at you or whatever. You surround yourself with only your own kind. Because here's the deal. Your identity goes then from the outside in. Once you are in Christ and you know who you are, does it make sense? Your identity is from your Father. It goes from the inside out. That's the reason why when you're truly in Christ, and I'm not talking religious fools who, wake up Bibles and stuff. I'm talking about people who walk in the fruits of the Spirit: love, gentleness, kindness, long-suffering. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who is across from you. You look at the person, you look at their eyes, and you look deeper than the skin. You look at the purpose. You're like, what can you bring to the table? And that's what I loved about Dr. King when he said that, we don't be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Mm-hmm. Then we talked about the sandworm. That's what these little worms, that's what you are from the inside. We might be different from the outside. Thank God. Imagine everybody looking like me. It's good. Oh, I mean, everybody in my family is blonde and blue-eyed, just boring, doesn't it? Because I love enjoying other people. I love this. I just love looking at them going like, I love that texture because my hair doesn't do that. When we finally learn that we've been created and that we all have the same value and the same thing, you go like, okay, what can you bring to the table? What can we do together? It doesn't even matter what language you speak, where you come from. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, okay, what can you do? Show me. And I get excited about meeting new people. I always go to the food first of all. I was like, okay, what are you eating? Can we get together and try some?
What are you eating? Oh, God.
My mother-in-law is Jamaican. I can cook some Jamaican curry chicken. Trust me, I can compete with anybody because you always love to talk over food. And what did Jesus do? He sat down
Sat down at the table.
and he ate with people. I think we need to sit down with people and just eat with them. Because at the end of the day, we're like sandworms. Up, you got to eat, you got to poop. I don't care who you are, if you're the president or if you're the last, if you're a beggar. You all have the same value. The food goes in and goes out. You come in naked, and guess what, baby? You're leaving out naked.
You leave here naked.
You're not taking nothing with you.
Anything with you. Anything. Nope. Yeah.
No. And that's the thing, I think, realizing who you are. You've been created and you are loved. And when you're at that level where you're just like, man, I can just love you. Just I can just love you. That's it, just because the value is exactly the same. No greater, no lower, but then I look at the character and then I'll go like, okay, do you have integrity? That's where I started with 100 points when I meet somebody. And then I look at their character. Then I watch them. Like, you remember, I watch people like, what's up with that? And then I look at the character. I'm like, are you a woman or a man of integrity? Can I trust you? Like Uncle Martin, remember when he caught you? Mm-hmm. Can I trust you? Are you a man, a woman of your own word? And that's where I come in with, okay, can we collaborate? But this has nothing to do with how you look like from the outside. It all has to do with, with you look on the inside. And I think once you embrace your identity, and be comfortable who you are, you don't have time to be hating on people.
But today, because of the way things are going, we're looking more and more at the color of a person's skin.
Yeah.
Judging people by where they come from, mm-hmm. and what they look like.
Yes.
And when you talk about that, and I reflect back when I came to Germany 40 years ago, things were different.
Yes.
And how things are now. Mm-hmm. They're progressively getting worse. It first started when East and West came together. And then after that, we have immigration of people of different color. And people are now talking about something that wasn't a topic before. Mm. It's now a topic. Mm. It's a problem now. It's a problem that you see dark people, people of color walking on the streets, or it's a problem now that you see. It's hit home now because statistics says now that every third person in Germany has migration background.
Yeah. I think also with us coming from an absolute narcissist background from one person, as we talked about the positive leadership, now we talk about the negative leadership. The thing is, I see this repeating. I see people, since I grew up with all these stories from my grandmother, who was born in 1915. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with these words like Hotend. And I didn't know what that was. I was just like, it was messy for me. It was less worth. And then I'm realizing, wow, wait a minute. These are kings and queens from Africa. What did you do with them? See, because you kind of grow up and you go like, okay, what is this? I'm questioning things now. I'm really questioning things. I'm looking things up. And I see this ignorance right now that worries me is sweeping over people right now in the United States as well as in Germany. And we have a couple of loud voices who do not know who they are. Mm-hmm. Who claim to know God, but you clearly see their fruits is completely something different. I hear what you're saying, but what you're doing is something totally different. You have zero integrity, zero character.
That's right.
Right? Mm-hmm. And they're leading people. And I had a conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine. Oh my God. And she voiced exactly the same things. She voiced exactly from the narcissistic view of the accusing, of the finger pointing, of the, I'm better than you and you come from there. And she
really?
voiced the exact same thing. And I said, wait. And she's like, you're not supporting this? And I said, excuse my French, hell no. No.
Are you serious?
I'm seriously, I'm like, I'm falling out. I'm like, no, girl. And she's like, well, then we have to agree to disagree. I do not think our friendship will survive because she is all in this. And I thought this could never happen to her. Really, I was like,
are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Same things. about everything that's going on right now. She is totally indoctrinated with this lie. And she's calling me that I am crazy, right? That, oh, but this is from God. And I'm thinking, time out. Time out.
No.
This is the thing, what I'm talking about. This is so dangerous. It happened here with Hitler. 11 million Jews were killed.
I remember Americans saying to me, you're going to Germany? They killed all those Jews. Oh, so that could never happen in America. What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
Of course it can.
The lie. Again, the lie.
The lie. It's a lie. Of course. We're headed down a bad road. We're headed down a bad
And the thing is,
road.
if we don't talk about identity, and that is the key. Germany doesn't know its identity. Germany is still limping from its history. When I went to the States as an exchange student in 92, this guy looked me straight in the eye, because we have an N-word too in Germany. It's called Nazi. It hurts as much as, And then he said to me, he's like, all German are Nazis. I went, what? I said, yeah, because and I was like, oh my goodness, just the ignorance that I see that all this is bad and all this is good. As I said, you never fit into, we talked about, you never fit, ignorance. You're too black to be an opera singer. You're too light to be a gospel singer. You to this, you to that. You never fit in their standard where they're happy with their identity, because if everything is controlled in their environment, you see it right now in politics, everything is perfectly controlled. Everything that speaks against your own little crazy worldview, your own lie building, will be eliminated. You will be called a monster. You will be called a threat to their own identity, because they don't have any. See, Germany doesn't have an identity because we're still limping from Hitler. Yes,
that's right.
We are still limping. Right. So that's why we're taking people in, because we're like, oh, we're not the bad Nazis.
That's right.
We're really good.
To clean up the image and to stay and to work on trying to be tolerant. Yeah.
History repeats itself if we don't listen, if we don't learn.
That's right.
And that's why I'm learning as much as I can, because I'm like, okay, what is happening here? It's all interconnected. And I see the same thing happening right now in the United States. And yes, I have already voted.
Well, I'm waiting for my ballot, and I'm so
I faxed it
in. I'm really nervous now. I'm getting nervous because I haven't received it as of yet. Some people has been stated they had been in line 10 hours, 8 hours in Georgia, Atlanta, waiting, trying to vote. Trying to vote. That's ridiculous.
It's time to speak up.
Voter suppression. And who would have ever thought that would be happening in the United States of America today? Voter suppression like this. Closing mailboxes, closing down centers where people can go to vote, which were free, used to be open before. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And making people stand hours over hours over hours to cast a ballot. That's ridiculous. That's unheard of. And nobody cannot tell me that that is not devious.
That's straight satanic.
It doesn't make, and that is to discourage people in minority areas from voting, to go to vote. But now what they showed in the last election, you can go to a white poll. Oh, it was easy. No, just through. But for the Black people, it was something different. And they would close the door on people. They had been standing in the line for hours, and then they cut it off.
But I hope and I pray, I can just speak for my grandmother, who I grew up with these stories, and I say, Grandma, why did you never speak up? And she said, because I was afraid.
Afraid. People are afraid. People said all the time, they were afraid. Because
fear does one thing, it holds you down. Fear and lie go hand in hand. So you get put in a lie, and that's when you implement fear, and then you come in as a false savior. That's my Judas worm in the book. Remember? He comes in as a false savior. He's such a narcissist and such a manipulator.
Mhm.
This is unbelievable. I watched this thing happening right in front of me. So I'm praying. I really pray that people will get up and rise up, and say enough is enough. And we got to vote. I don't care what's going to happen. We have to make our voices to be heard. And I said, I'm joining right in. I'm just like, enough is enough.
I heard this Black man say yesterday on CNN, he says, people lost, and I thought it was so good because he said, people have lost their lives people have lost their lives so that I can vote today.
Yes.
I don't mind waiting 8 hours standing in line. And
yes.
It was wonderful.
Yes.
I thought it was wonderful that he knows that and realizes that. And a lot of young people today, they don't even understand what it means to vote. Right. What a privilege that is.
Yes, yes. Yes.
And a lot of them are not going to go to vote.
They might, because there's a lot going on. I literally.
I hope so. I hope.
Right. We need every voice.
I saw the new. We have to.
We have to lock arms and go like, no, we all want to be free. Because when you're not free, Juandalynn,
nobody is free.
Nobody is free. No. If you cannot.
But excuse me, Petra, I don't want to interrupt you, but this was my point. Some German was saying to me, it was, I think yesterday, day before yesterday, he said to me, he says, what's going on in the United States is unheard of. If it were taking place in another country, the United States would be talking about need to send in troops.
Yes.
Monitoring. They want to police other nations, but the other nations can't police them because what they're doing is unheard of. Yes. What's now taking place, Petra, has never existed in the history of the United States of America.
Yes.
And that's all to stop people from voting.
Yes. 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 Yes.
This kind of behavior happens in dictatorships.
What is a narcissist? Dictator. What was Hitler?
That's it.
That's why I'm just, as I said, I told my auntie, and I said, when it first happened, I said, ooh, orange is mighty close to red, to brown. Orange is mighty close to brown. And she's like, Petra, you wouldn't say that? And I said, sweetie, I grew up with history and I see parallels, and history likes to repeat itself when we do not learn from it.
That's right. It's always destined to repeat itself.
She called me, she said, Petra, I'll never forget your words, what you told me a couple of years ago. And I said, I hate to be correct in this area, but now I pray and hope the United States learns from Germany, learns from every country. There's still time to vote. We got to speak up, and we got to love those who can't see. That's another thing. They're not our enemies.
We are all God's children. I say all the time, if you take my skin off, I'm just the same as the other. We're all the same. We're nothing. No one is better than the other. We're all God's children. We're all made in His image. It's important that people not just follow a sheep, think, listen, reason, read, try to be intelligent so that you can make your own decisions.
Thank you.
And not just follow, wir sagen hier in Deutschland, ein Hammel.
A goat or a wolf in sheep clothing.
Yes, just following. And social distancing is so important. We're in a pandemic. It's so important that people realize that the health of people and others is important. Yeah.
Yes. We take care of each other because we bleed the same.
That's
Bleed
right.
exactly the same.
You said it right. It's just that I don't speak English that often, and words don't come to me as fast as they should. I'm sorry. It takes a while. Yeah.
Your German is better than mine, so I'm good.
Oh no, das stimmt nicht. That's not true. That's not true.
Totally. I'm like,
no.
"Can you say it, German?"
No. Your English is better than mine. Yes, it is. Yeah, you speak it all the time.
Yes, that's true. It's my heart language. So
yeah.
thank you so much for your time. We're going to continue that because out of this TED Talk became a real friendship, a real appreciation, a true love.
With you.
Yeah. And we're crazy ladies are up for something, right? We're gonna do something crazy. Yeah. We got some crazy going on here. So I appreciate you. I love you.
I love you too. I love you, Petra. Yeah?
And I'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay. All righty.